Hi ladies and gentlemen, so today I'm going to be looking at observational learning. So when we're looking at observational learning, it's all about observing a model's behavior or somebody else's actions and looking at the consequences of that behavior. And we're trying to determine whether or not we should replicate that behavior ourselves. A model is who or what is being observed. Observational learning has been researched and described by psychologist Albert Bandura, and we look at his experiment towards the end. So when we're looking at observational learning, usually we look at it from the perspective of children, mainly because they use adults as a way of guiding their own behaviours. If we even look at our own behaviours, we look at vicarious conditioning. So we look at somebody else's behaviours and whether or not they're being reinforced or punished, and this modifies your behaviour accordingly. So if you see someone else getting punished or reinforced because they've done something good or bad, then you're less likely to do it as well, or more likely to do it, depending on what it happens. So vicarious reinforcement occurs when a behaviours model is being reinforced. And if you see someone being rewarded for their actions or reinforced for their actions, you're more likely to behave in a similar way. Vice versa for vicarious punishment. If you see the model being punished, you're less likely to actually engage in that same behavior. So there are 5 different elements of observational learning. Attention is the first one, and now we need to be very careful with your wording on this one. All right, you have to use the word attention. You have to use the word retention. You have to use the word reproduction, so forth and so forth. You have to use those words. So when you're describing it, and usually you'll get a question that asks you to describe the process, the individual must pay close attention to the model's behavior and the consequences of that behavior. Attention can be influenced by interest level, so whether or not you're interested in that particular behavior, the situation you're in. So if you need to learn something before 2 o'clock, you're going to watch that behavior real closely. And you're also going to look at the perceptual capabilities. Are you cognitively able to actually understand what's going on and pay attention to it? People pay closer attention to models that are similar to themselves. You're more likely to pay attention to a female model if you're female. You're more likely to pay attention to someone who's more attractive than someone who's less. Sorry, world. And we are going to pay attention to people who are more well-liked and have a high status. And that's very evident in videos that you see on YouTube influencers. Anyway, moving on. Let's say, for example, you happen to have a celebrity who is teaching you psychology. 100% positive that if you had a celebrity teach the exact same content and they had their little pretty face in front of you, there is a good chance you'll pay more attention to them than what you will to me. All kinds of sad, but that's the facts of life. Retention is the second step. Once you've paid attention, you must be able to accurately remember the model's behavior. This is retaining it. So make sure that when you're actually describing the question, you actually put retention and then colon and then say your piece. Make sure that it's very clear that you have done, which one's attention, which one's retention, all that sort of stuff. So the more meaningful an individual can make the memory of the observation, the more closely they will be able to replicate it when necessary. So finding personal things that make you pay attention more is going to make sure that you retain it better. Reproduction. Individual must have the ability to put into practice what they have observed. I can watch somebody teach how to surf and do all that sort of stuff. But I don't have the physical ability to do so because 1, I can't leave my 5K radius. 2, I don't live near a beach. 3, I don't have a surfboard. And I don't like the ocean. Anyway, moving on. I don't have the ability to do so. So I'm not going to pay attention as much. Obviously, you can't watch someone then reproduce the behavior perfectly, or else everyone would be champion sports people. That would be nice though. So the 4th and 5th step is motivation and reinforcement. Now, occasionally VCAR exams actually combine the two. So motivation is exactly that. You must be motivated to perform the behavior they observed. If you don't like surfing, you're not going to be motivated to do it. Same sort of thing. You're not going to be motivated to make spaghetti dinner for, your family if you actually hate spaghetti. Right? So there needs to be an incentive for observing and performing the behavior. Reinforcement is what influences that motivation. So you can see why VCAR tend to put this part together. And whether or not you reproduce that observed behavior depends on what reinforcement may be given. It could be praise, it could be pretty much anything, but as long as it's relevant to you and desirable by you, you will actually do it. Reinforcement always strengthens, going back to operant conditioning, the behavior. It can be external, so somebody else gives you money or praise or whatever. It could be vicarious, so you watch somebody else get rewarded and you go, oh, maybe I'll get rewarded. Or from within oneself. I'm really proud of what I did. So this is a good way of remembering the order. Model your armor so people can observe you. That's just the mnemonic I use. Attention, retention, reproduction, motivation, and reinforcement. It does get confusing when you try to remember all the R's, but you have to have them in order. Alrighty, so Bandura's experiments, and this is the Bobo doll experiment. So he did an experiment with 4-year-old preschoolers, and they were split into 3 groups. All 3 of them watched a movie of a man punching and hitting a large inflated doll. And this is what's known as the Bobo doll. It's like a big clown, and it bounces back and forth. Group 1 then saw the model being rewarded for his behavior with lollies, drink, whatever. Group 2 saw the model get punished for his behavior by being spanked and with verbal criticisms. It's so funny if you watch the video, look it up online. They literally put the man over the knee and spank him on the bum. It's so funny. Group 3 saw the male get neither rewarded or punished. The children were then placed individually in a room with toys and a large inflatable doll. It was found that the consequences of the model's actions made a difference to the behavior of the children. Children in groups 1 and 3 were more likely to act aggressively than children in group 2. Boys were more aggressive than girls, and all children, even those in group 2, were more likely to act aggressively when given positive reinforcers to do so. So think about it this way. In group 1, someone's been engaging in poor behavior and they're getting rewarded for it. In group 2, they get punished for it. In group 3, they didn't get rewarded or punished, so there's no consequences. So you can hit people and get no consequences, and that's what the children actually started to think about. So in regards to tips for the learning chapter or topic, it is heavily examined, particularly in the multiple choice sections. Make sure you practice until you are so sick of them that you just can't go on anymore. But practice using the scenarios for classical, operant, and observational learning, and make sure you know the before, during, and after sections. Learn the map or formula for classical conditioning, which is what I just mentioned, and the more you do it, the better and faster you'll become at it. Remember that reinforcement always aims to strengthen a behavior, where punishment always aims to weaken the behavior. Know the difference between positive and negative. So positive, you add something, negative, you remove something. Often the best way to do this is through examples or scenarios. So once again, keep doing those scenarios. You can find them online. Just Google classical conditioning scenarios. It'll come up. Be able to explain what ethical guidelines that the little Albert experiment breached, and you can see that in the classical conditioning video. And don't overcomplicate it. You would have used or seen all these types of learning in your life. Relate it to yourself, especially with your revision. But if it doesn't have a scenario there, relate it to yourself.